Welcome to the regularly scheduled school board meeting of April 9th, 2019. I call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Treasurer Anderson. Here. Director Johnson. Here. Director Shaw. Here. Director Azer.
Here.
Director Goggins.
Here.
And Clerk Boguszewski is also here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any agenda adjustments this evening?
There aren't any.
Excellent. We are very fortunate this evening to have some announcements. We have a variety of groups of students who will be recognizing this evening. The first is the boys diving state competitor, and Reed Horner is here to introduce the competitor and possibly the coach. I'm not sure exactly.
Yes.
Excellent.
So you guys can come in. So we just had a great track and field event across the street. Just concluded. Our kids did a wonderful job, so it was fun to be there. But here to recognize again our dive program. So as you recognize in the fall, we had a few of our divers for our girls program and now for our boys program as well. This is Peter Carpenter, and he is in 8th grade. So he's one of 2 8th graders that participated in state this year. So pretty fantastic. And I'll have Coach Andreessen come up as we talked with him in the fall and again in the winter. Well, as you can tell, we're pretty fortunate to have him here, and he'll summarize the season a little bit for us.
Thank you.
I really appreciate coming back here. This is one of the highlights of my year. I apologize. Our swim coach was supposed to be here, and he'd be much better at a season since he works with all the athletes and I work with so few. We had 2 divers start this year. One is 7th grader who was brand new. He will be our second varsity diver next year. We were able to get him ready to go. Phenomenal experience. But we're here to talk about Peter. This is Peter's second year as a diver. I believe it's his first year on the varsity team. In our 9 dual meets, Peter won 7 of the 9.
Wow.
He got second in one of them and third in one of them. He's all conference. He got his first varsity letter this year. When we got to the section meet, he placed 4th in the section meet, which is what qualified him for the state meet. 4th out of about 16 divers. And he got 32nd in the state meet. So we had a phenomenal season, and as you heard, he's an 8th grader, so we're looking for a lot more phenomenal seasons out of him. So.
Well, can we ask you a couple questions?
Yeah, come on up.
So the only thing I know about diving is what I've watched in the Olympics, but can you tell me what your specialty dive is or what your favorite dive is?
My favorite dive is a 52-31D, which is probably don't know.
That's my favorite too.
So basically, that's 1.5 flips backwards with a half twist.
Awesome.
It's fun.
I bet so. Thank you. Good luck to you next year too.
Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. So I will say, while Peter was doing that, he took a pre-AP advanced algebra class and got an A in 8th grade. So he already has a high school credit and already shows up on our system in high school and as an A. So he's doing a really good job in the classroom and in the pool, and we look forward to having you here for a long time and continued success, right? So thank you very much. And now, gymnastics. So we had a couple of participants in gymnastics as well. We had Caitlin Doherty, did I pronounce that correctly, and Monica Barrett, who both went to state. Monica took 6th place on vault, so that means she got on the podium. A really interesting and really great fact about the Suburban East Conference is 25% of all placers at Gymnastics State were in our conference. So 25%. So that just shows how competitive our conference is all around, but definitely in gymnastics as well. So 25% were from our conference. Again, if you look in the gym, in our gymnasium, and all the banners that our gymnastics program has, they've been in good hands for a long time. And Coach Flatten, Coach Curley, Coach K, who was new this year, did a really good job. So without further ado, Coach Curley, if you can talk about the girls and their experience and the season.
Thank you for having us here tonight. As our activities director stated, both the young ladies made it to the state tournament, where Monica scored a 9.7 and placed 6th. And what was special about that was our assistant coach this year, Heather Kay. We have a top 10 board, and she was in 10th place on that with a 9.6. So with that 9.7, it knocked Heather off of the chart, and now Monica is one of the top 10 all-time on the vault for us. And she's a junior, so she'll be back with us again next year, so we look forward to that. And Caitlin Doherty, she was a senior, co-captain this year, and she placed 15th on balance beam with a 9.3. And what was nice to see for both of those two, they were personal bests in the state tournament, so they peaked at the right time. And as a team, we did the same thing. We got through the season with a 4-4 record, fairly modest for where we've been before, but very pleased with where we started out the season and where we ended up. At the section tournament, we were second to Stillwater, so we were the section runner-ups, and Stillwater was the section or the state runner-up at the state tournament to Lakeville North. So we were in good hands. Outside of that, just again, thank you for having us and supporting activities and athletics.
But thanks for having us and recognizing our students. It's this is the fun part of the job and kind of the payday to be able to support our students who are excelling in the classroom and on the playing field or pool or whatever it is. So we're fortunate to have the kids that we do and fortunate to have the coaches that we have. So any questions for me?
Well, I was just going to say we thank the parents as well, because we know how much commitment it takes from a parent's perspective to be able to support their youth in doing sports. So.
Especially those two sports, right? They start very young, and there's a lot of time and energy that goes into it at a young age. So very well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have our introduction of our new communications director.
It's a pleasure and an honor for me tonight to introduce Joshua Collins. And for some of you in the room and some viewing, I suspect that Josh may be a familiar face because for about the last 6 years, he's been and still currently is the Director of Communications and Media Relations at the Minnesota Department of Education. So he's not going to have to travel too far from his current place of employment. And I believe his start date here is April 29th. Is that right, Josh? And so Josh has also worked in communications at the Ramsey County Regional Railroad Authority, at TriMet, at Minneapolis Public Schools, and at the Hiawatha Light Rail Project Office. So he brings a wealth of experience and background to the position. Josh has a master's degree in strategic communications with a minor in journalism from University of Oregon. And he has a bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in communications from Macalester College. And so I'm thinking, communications director, we better give him a chance to speak, huh?
Thank you, Superintendent. Well, it's an honor to be here and meet you all. I'm very excited to be joining your district. As Superintendent mentioned, my commute will not change much at all. It's going to be great. This is a great location for me. So my kids all go to school in Mounds View schools. I have one sophomore at Irondale and 2 8th graders who will be freshmen at Irondale next year. I have played, coached, and attended so many soccer games at Roseville Area Middle School that I sort of feel like there's a plot of earth there that I could call my own. So I'm excited to join you. I think as I have been at the Department of Ed the last 6 years, it's been a really wonderful experience looking at kind of a macro level, looking at kind of how statewide policy impacts our schools. I've had the pleasure of working with school districts, especially Karen and your superintendent I've worked with a number of times. But we are disconnected from kids at the state. The only time we really get to engage, we don't even have board meetings where we get to recognize, our student athletes. So the idea of getting closer to a district level, coming in and having that opportunity to not only see the great work that educators, administrators are doing for those kids, but to help you celebrate it with the community, to help put a face on our students and the great things that's happening is just something I'm so very excited to do and to do here with you in Roseville area schools. So I just wanted, Dr. Scully wanted me to be able to meet you today. I'll be starting on the 29th. I understand we'll have a community meeting the next day talking about construction. Chair Goggins was telling me a little bit about a challenge with driveways, and I have sometimes joked that I've done about half of my career in public education and the other half in transit construction. So relocating driveways and those sorts of challenges are adventures I'm familiar with and look forward to doing along with you.
Thank you, and very welcome.
Thank you.
Is there any community input this evening? Okay. Moving to the consent agenda, do we have a motion for the consent agenda without the retirements?
So moved?
I'll second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? If we'd like to do gifts,
Sure. We'd like to thank the Brim Hall PTA for gifts of funds for physical education supplies. Also for Brim Hall Elementary School from the Ordway Center, gift of funds for a field trip. Ooh, I bet that was fun. To Edgerton Elementary School from Catherine and Paul Nelson, a gift of funds for kindergarten bingo. To Roseville Area Middle School from Kathleen and Brian Hansen, a gift of funds for the Rams Theater. To the Roseville Area High School from Ace Auto Parts, a gift of funds for the Roz track team. And also from NWTF North Metro Longbeards chapter, a gift of funds for the track team. To Boys Lacrosse, a gift of funds from the Roseville Area Community Foundation. And from Danielle and Christina Bowrider, a gift of funds for the Roz Food Shelf. For the Roseville High School Boys Hockey Boosters, a gift of funds for additional coaches. To Roseville Area Schools, from Metro Meals on Wheels, a gift of funds for the Meals on Wheels program. From Angie Malone Insurance Agency and Farmers Insurance, a gift of funds for Meals on Wheels. From Mary Jensen, a gift of a violin for a student in need of an instrument to play who cannot afford or rent one. From Linda Owen, a gift of funds to the Roseville area, for the Roseville Area Learning Center Garden. Thank you so much to all of our generous community.
thank you, Aaron.
I'm sure we do have some retirements tonight to announce also. John Bradbury, a paraprofessional at the high school, is retiring after 5 years with us. Eileen Bryant, also paraprofessional at Parkview, is retiring after 32 years of service. Donna Dakin, a para at Parkview, is retiring after 24 years of service. And a Spanish language licensed teacher at M.D. Williams, Marilyn Howard, is retiring after 37 years of service. So 4 stellar individuals and a long cumulative time served the kids and families of our district. So I move that we accept these retirements with great appreciation from us.
Second?
Second.
Any comments? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, we don't have any reports or non-action items this evening, so we move to our action item. The first is Policy 610, Graduation Requirements for Adult Basic Education Learners. This is a new policy, and it is a second reading.
Good evening. As Chair Goggins has stated, this is the second reading. We had a chance to look at it at our last school board meeting. There was one change in word that you asked us to relook at. It was taken out of the policy. I think the policy stands just fine with the word out of it. I've not heard any other concerns at this point, so I would ask that you approve the reading of Policy 610, please.
Is there any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait, do we have to have a motion?
I need a motion. You're just ready.
Thank you. I was just ready. Yeah, I move the adoption of policy 610, graduation requirements for adult basic education learners.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Thank you so much for supporting our adult learners, and I do believe this is probably one of the first policies in the state of Minnesota that deals with adult basic education, and I think it was an important move for our board to move that way, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Well, thank you for all the work you and others have done to make that possible. That moves us to our second action item, the 2018-2019 school calendar adjustment due to weather, and Sherry Thompson will be covering
Yes,
this for us.
good evening. So, as you know, Minnesota statute does require that the district's calendar include a minimum number of instructional hours for all of our students. The hours, of course, are different depending on the grade level. Elementary versus secondary. This year, we have actually had to cancel 5 days due to weather. The legislature passed and that Governor Walz signed off on a bill that provides us some relief as far as these days go. So it is in effect for this year. There are some conditions that we actually need to meet in order to move forward, and one being that the board take action on this. Those days are deemed to be winter weather-related health and safety concerns. So as you can see in the memo, we can count those towards our instructional days. We do need to make a report to the Commissioner of Education on the number of days and hours that we're going to count towards those health and safety days. We are also required to pay or compensate both our employees and our contractors. The majority of our employees are paid under contract, so they have been compensated. We do have a few employees that are on timesheet, and we're looking at costing that out right now. I believe the cost will be minimal. And then also to pay maybe some substitutes that were assigned to work, but then school was canceled. And in the case of our substitutes, we contract with Teachers on Call. So we're pulling all of that information together to ensure that employees of the district are made whole, but again, most of them already have been. So we are looking at counting, I'm smiling because we are looking at counting 4 days. 4 of the 5 days is instructional time per the snow relief bill. As you know, there is now a threat for weather this week. So I will give you that caveat. Maybe it's because this was on the agenda that this happened. So that's what I have. I don't know if Aldo wants to add anything.
I would just say, I think it is in the memo, that it's really the secondary schools that are short hours, and
Yes.
the schools are short days. And we need to do 4 because 3 didn't quite cut it for the high school students. So 4 of the 5 days, but as Sherry said, who knows? We may be back at the next meeting depending what happens with the weather
Yep.
this week.
Chair God, or can I ask a clarifying question? Why do we not just do 5 of the 5 days then?
We could. Then we're automatically paying people above and beyond until we incur that 5th. If we don't incur the 5th day.
I see. If the snow day happens, which it's not going to.
I'm with you.
It's not going to. What if it did? Would we have to come back to the board and then to add another day?
Yes, we would. Yes.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I would just point out one other thing. So, of those relatively few employees who weren't paid, there's also the option of bringing them back on another day for pay. And of course, there's always the temptation in a school district, you need more time for professional learning. But we think in this case, with so many others being paid, it's just feels more appropriate to just pay them rather than ask them to come in another day.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, we unanimously passed the adjustment.
Thank you.
Next, we have board reports. Does anybody have a board report this evening? Or perhaps more appropriately, who would like to go first for the board report?
I can go. I did go to the NSBA conference, but I thought because we had kind of a longer study session, perhaps I have the information, but I can just wait till next week too.
If you'd like to do it now, that's
I can do
fine.
it now too. I'll just make it kind of quick. But before I do that, I wanted to talk to you. I went to the Northeast Metro 916 meeting last week. We talked a lot about scheduling snow day relief. They're actually talking about calendaring next year, adding a couple of days onto their calendar. At the end of the year, the way that their calendar is set up, it's just a different school system in a lot of ways than what we have. So they can kind of chop those off at the end if they don't need them. So that's one of the things they do there at 916. But it's a little bit more feasible, I think, for them to do that than it would be for, say, our district to do that. I also have the information they give us every week about how many students we have enrolled in 916 programs, how many are transitioning out, and then I have the superintendent's report, just things that she wants to talk about. We spent a lot of time talking about the fact that they lost their business manager at 916, and they're having a heck of a time trying to find a new business manager. They said, we're not trying to take your people. However, if you want to put the word out there, they really need help, and it's a hard job to fill. So just thought I'd put that out in the universe. As far as the NSBA conference, it was fantastic. I have a picture of me like Rocky on the top of the stairs celebrating, there you go people at home, celebrating the victory of a great conference. I thought it was a great conference. And I came back really renewed as a board member. The themes I thought, and Kitty, maybe you can add if you agree, some of the themes that were really prevalent were arts integration. Instead of just having art kind of plopped on the side, really seaming it into your curriculum. They had some really cool ideas with that, and we saw great art, of course, from student presentations. And that was brought up a lot. Social emotional learning, curriculums, mental health in our students, the wellness.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Wellness of staff, students, and school boards, career readiness, and skills for the jobs of the future so that they know how to turn off their computers and things like that.
I am looking at school board stuff here.
I know you are. I'm just teasing you. Those were the themes of this year, which I thought was really interesting because they were a little different than the themes from the year before. I'm just going to highlight some stuff, and I do have a letter that I wrote out if you would like to read it. Mm-hmm. But some of the things that I wanted to talk about that I thought were really, really cool. Mental health. They talked about how we need to validate our students and their experiences, and there are so many things that we do to create invalidating environments that we may not be aware of, and it's our job as boards to create, to help our teachers create those environments, and things that take power and autonomy from our students. Some of the things they mentioned, and I know that I do this, in the attempt to be close to my students, I'll say things like, it's okay, you can do this, I know it, and he said, you don't know that. You can't say it's going to be okay. You don't know their experiences. And by saying, "This, you've got this, it's easy, come on, dig in," it's easy for you because you're the educator and you're the adult. It's not necessarily easy for students. And sometimes in ways that we mean to be caring and kind, we're taking power away. And I thought that was really eye-opening and something that I personally needed to hear. That just always trying to help our kids and sort of pick them up. You become the snowplow parent. You're trying to get everything out of their way instead of letting them deal with the shovel themselves. So I thought that was very interesting. Another presenter talked about how 10 seconds of extraordinary listening can be mentorship. So just listening to our students and listening to each other, but really listening is what we can start to do more. And when kids don't think that they're being mentored, sometimes they're more open to being mentored. So I thought that was really great. Career readiness. This was a vein that ran throughout so many sessions. And I went to one that talked about generations, and of course they pretty much just didn't even talk about Gen X, which is, of course, right? We're the middle child of generations. But they talked a lot about the soft skills and the hard skills that our students need. They talked a lot about career and technical training, and that there's a skills gap, they were calling it. But what I thought was fascinating is they talked about creativity, flexibility, trainability, things that 5 years ago were not on the top of the list, And now they are. And I thought to myself, my gosh, and I'm just going to say it, those are the things we do not have on our MCA tests. You don't test creativity. You don't test trainability. You don't test public speaking. You barely test writing. And you certainly don't test, creating art pieces on the MCAs. So it was interesting because all these things they were saying we should be focusing on more are all the things that cut out first. As an English teacher, what's the first thing I get rid of? Poetry and public speaking. So, writing poetry, not analyzing it, writing their own poetry. So I thought that was really fascinating. One last thing I wanted to tell you because I thought it was amazing. Oh yeah, they were talking about happiness in schools and people being happy and comfortable. And he brought up the idea that when you have somebody you work with that's super positive and bright and light, they can feel super annoying. And he said as a culture and as a society, we accept misery more than we accept joy. And that really stuck out to me too. That those people that are, and you know those people, who are really outgoing, really bubbly, gosh, she's so annoying. She's always, why are you so happy all the time, right? And it's because it's easier to accept misery. So I thought that was really interesting too. So overall, it was a terrific conference. I learned a ton. I ate a bunch of oysters. I got to spend time with Kitty. We got the great award. It was fantastic.
You ran up some stairs.
I did run up some stairs.
There's some music in the background?
No, I did. I listened to Gonna Fly Now in my iPod, and then I jumped over the top of it. And I ran. I just killed those stairs. I'm not going to lie. I was really good at it. So, thank you for listening to my report.
Thank you. That's good. I had the chance to attend, as did yourself, Madam Chair, and Director Johnson, the Corinne Family Night last week, held at Rams. It was a very interesting event. There were probably maybe 100 heads there, counting adults and their kids. And as you know, it was an evening of various staff leaders or district leaders sharing with the families assembled tricks and tips on how to help kids with homework, how to help them manage their time, how to deal with device security. The nutrition person was there talking about how to fill out the forms appropriately for reduced lunch options, all of that. It was very nice. I was particularly really impressed with the work of the cultural liaisons who were there. Not only did they, of course, translate virtually simultaneously, synchronously as the speakers spoke, but you could just tell how accepted and part of that community they are and how trusted they are in terms of just being the channel into the district. And we get a chance to chat briefly with some parents. One mom sat with us pretty much through the evening and shared their thoughts, and it's still a barrier. I mean, those parents have a problem with English. It's not their native language, and the kids, as we learned, often become not just the translator, but the sole source of information going into the family, into the home from the school district, which is both a good thing and could be a bad thing if the kids have a chance to edit that communication before they share it necessarily with their parents. So some of the evening, I think, was spent encouraging the parents and families assembled to call directly, get to know the teachers. If they needed to use those liaisons as translators to make those interactions happen, do it. But I think that's something we would echo is the direct communication of families with your kid's teacher, even if it needs to be helped and facilitated by the cultural liaison, is something that we'd encourage everyone to do, because then you really know what's going on in the classroom with your child. So it was a great evening.
I attended POPs last week, and it was phenomenal. Chris was there as well. You probably went to both of them. So I just went to the Thursday night, and I was surprised I had missed that Chris Jennings is back. He finished a PhD over the last 3 years, and it was sad to have him go, but then he showed up there in their faculty group called Chicken Ticket, which is just a phenomenal act. It always has been. But this time it was made especially phenomenal by Pat Moriarty singing In My Life, which was, and at the time all of the Cantus students came down and they all knelt in front And while he was singing that, they all waved their hands back and forth to me. It was just one of the most beautiful things. They were showing their appreciation of it. So it's lovely, the whole thing. It's just a great evening, not a dull moment. For, what is it, 3.5 hours? It was a little it's so long. It's 2.5 hours. It's a long concert, but an awful lot of stuff, and the students are so, you talk about the creativity, that's at the core of what happens at the high school, and it's wonderful.
I had an opportunity last week to attend the Rosewater High School One World Multicultural Show. I've been able to attend that for a couple years in a row, and it's always a special event just to see kind of the richness, the diversity, the multicultural groups that we have at the high school. Wonderful singing, wonderful dancing, and these are students who, many of them are not in any type of choir or band or orchestra, but to see the talent on that stage from some of our multicultural groups. And I believe the students plan virtually the entire event, so it was a wonderful, wonderful event. And then also had an opportunity to attend Parkview's Family Fun Night. I'm so used to going to Brimhall's International Festival that it was very neat and interesting to attend a different school's like festival, to help support the community, help support the PTSA. And it was really interesting to go to another, like I said, school's event, and some good family friends there, and we just wanted to be supportive. And the whole family went, even my kids went, the teens, got them out of the house, but we had a blast. It was a great night, very well run. So, yeah.
Okay. I got to attend a poverty simulation with Kirk Boguszewski, put on by Do Good Roseville, and it is explicitly they call it a community action poverty simulation. So. Had no idea what to expect going into it, but basically it's a simulation where you go in and they simulate, they put you in a family, and the simulation is living, thriving, trying to live, thrive, and survive for a month with your family, and all the curveballs that get thrown to you. And I think I can speak for Mike that everybody left there rethinking everything that they know. It just made us, I got a chance to talk to Mike afterwards, and it really just kind of made us want to redouble our efforts. We do a lot of great things here. We really do. Okay, but it kind of reminded us why we do what we do. So if you get the opportunity to do it, I highly would recommend it. It's amazing what you can do in 2 hours. I attended again Do Good Roseville. Had part 2 of a series on civic literacy. Chair Goggins and I were at the one for local government. This one was for state government. So, simply put, it explained how a bill becomes law. So there's the traditional schoolhouse rock, how a bill becomes a law, and then here's the 45 steps that it takes to really have a bill become a law, and then, but in particular, how you, as an individual, can impact the process, and when's the best time to impact that process, and at what point you kind of go, maybe next year. I was able to attend Avid Family Night at Rams, and it was the first time I was able to do that. One of the really neat things that they did was, after they had a meal, they had a number of volunteers from different professions, sit down at a table, and the kids and their family could go over and talk to them to find out what's it like to be a computer programmer or a scientist or an engineer or an author or it was a very eclectic group of jobs that were there, and exposure to different locations is very important and critically important at this stage, because if you don't know, and if you don't know a training, if you don't know what it's like to work for the FBI, yes, they had an FBI person there, you're not going to go there, So kudos for how that was done. Really great. Definitely do it next year. Of course, as was mentioned, the Corinne family night also rams next night. You wrapped it up beautifully. There's really not much I could add outside of the fact that Christina Robertson, who's not here, so I can talk about it. She was amazing in her demonstration of what it's like to be a teenager. So it's just something that has to be experienced too, I believe. And of course, now last but certainly not least, the Pops concert. Just wow. I don't hide I've never hid my admiration for the music program that we have in this district. But I thought I had seen the best performance by any group of students on Thursday, and then Friday happened. And I apologize. These kids are wicked talented, and it's just amazing what they do. And my hats off to all of the parents, all of the teachers that make this happen, and Mr. Moriarty singing not a dry eye in the house. So that's all I have.
Great. A number of things I attended have already been discussed. I just wanted to add about the One World Festival. It was exciting to see that for the first time American Indian students participated, in addition to the traditional students who have participated among the Karen, the Nepali, the Latino, the Peba. But so it's nice to see it even broadening as more students become active. I had an opportunity to visit our Adult Basic Education Center and get a tour of the Pearson Testing Center, which is new this fall. We have capability of doing all the different kinds of tests that our adult basic education students need, but also teacher testing, other community kinds of testing, and that was really exciting to see that we could offer that as a service. I did go to NSBA as well. I will talk more about that next time. So that kind of completes the board reports. So adjourn the meeting. We'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll begin the study session.